everyone, welcome back to my channel, welcome to another video, and if you're new here, welcome to my corner of the internet. My name is Claudia. I'm a 27-year-old living in California, just trying to balance out working a corporate 9 to 5, working out, and then also just enjoying my life. I'm currently training for a half marathon and I'm on my reading era, so if any of that sounds interesting, go ahead, subscribe so you can follow along. In today's video, we're going to be going through every single book that I read in the month of February, and I'm also going to be walking you through my March TBR. February was definitely a very interesting month. There were some books that I really liked, and there were some books that I didn't like at all. So I can't wait to get started and talk about them, but we're going to be doing things differently. We're going to be ranking them based on how likely I am to recommend them to you. So we're going to start from least likely to you really need to read this right now. For the month of March, I've got a combination of romance, thrillers, and then I also received my first ARC. I just want to put that out there. It's very exciting. So let's just go ahead and get started with today's video. So of course, February was a month of love, and I really try to lean into the romance, but I'm a thriller girly. Also, I will say that I did set up myself for failure by including 8 books to my TBR, even though I know I was going to be traveling most of the month and that I was not going to be having time to read. But hey, at least I ended up reading 4 books, so we're just gonna take our win. We can just go ahead and get started with my least favorite book, and it was The Crash by Frida McFadden. This was not my first Frida McFadden. I actually read 2 of them before, and I kind of like them. I do know what I'm getting myself into. Like, it's supposed to be a quick, not too complex, not like very twisty, but like not too deep kind of thriller. And I actually like those, but this one was just not it. So the beginning was definitely not the strongest. Once I got to the middle, I just couldn't stop thinking about Mystery from Stephen King. There were so many similarities between the 2 books. And then at that point, I was like, okay, might as well just finish it. Like, perhaps it will redeem itself. And like, no, it didn't. It just didn't redeem itself. It was just not the best book. It's probably gonna be my worst book of the year. If you just want to say that you read all of the Frida McFadden, go ahead and read it. Otherwise, I will say just skip it. Next up, we got a fan fiction. This was actually really fun and really quirky in like the best way possible. It has vampires, a book lover character, and a lot of romance. But what really stood out to me was the character's depth. So the female main character actually is a sexual assault survivor. The adventures and the journey that she goes on this book is actually a really big part of her healing journey. So the characters were great. The story was definitely unique. I had a really good time reading it. I would say that it's definitely worth picking up if you like vampires or if you want like kind of like a quirky romance, but definitely with some depth. Now here's where my thriller heart comes out. We got Beautiful Ugly by Alice Finney. I've read so many Alice Finney books and I've actually loved every single one of them. I would say that the plots are always very original. The characters have a lot of depth. And in addition to that, like, I can never guess the plot twist. So to be fair, it was about a couple, so technically we could say that it was like love related, but like not really. If you know Alice Finney, you know. It's honestly a typical Alice Finney book where none of the characters are who they say they are. Nothing is what it seems, and there's so many turns and twists. It was actually such a good book. Highly recommended if you like Alice Finney or if you like any kind of thriller. It was very good. And my favorite book of the entire month, and probably my favorite book of the year, we have First Time Color by B.K. Borison. I know this book was gonna be really good and I knew I was really gonna like it, but I never thought that it was gonna end up being my first 5-star of the year. I have very high expectations because I read Love Like Farms last December. I thought it was like really cute, but this book was so much better. And since it's my favorite book, we're gonna spend some time talking about it. So this is a Sleepless in Seattle inspired romance, and it follows Aiden Valentine, who's a radio host who secretly doesn't believe in love, which is actually very funny because his radio show, it's actually about giving love advice to couples. One night, a young girl calls in and asks for advice for her mom's dating life. Eventually, Lucy, the female main character, ends up in the phone talking to Aiden, and their conversation goes absolutely viral in Baltimore. And Lucy and Aiden end up finding themselves in the middle of this media frenzy. Their story just kind of like develops from there. The entire city of Baltimore roots for Lucy to find love. And in the meantime, sparks start flying behind the scenes with Aiden. The banter, the slow burn, the romance in this book, it's absolutely everything you will want out of a romance and a little more. If you like rom-coms, you need to read this book. If you like romance, this is actually a must read. And if you don't like any of those things, I think you should still read it. It was that good. Now moving on into my March TBR. To be fair, we're already on like March 7th. So I have already started reading a few books, and as you know, I'm always reading 3 books at the same time: a physical book, an audiobook, and an ebook. So I guess we can just go ahead and get started with those. For my physical book, I have it right here. It's Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. I'm already halfway through this book, as you can see, and honestly, it has been so good. So pretty much this is a college sports romance following Scarlett, which is a competitive diver, as she's recovering from her injury and getting back into diving. And then it also follows Lucas, who is a world-class swimmer, also in the same college. So for one reason or another, they end up in like a situation, as situations do. They start to evolve into something more. I'm actually really liking this book. As a STEM girly, Ali Hazelwood can do no wrong. I've read every single one of her STEM romances, and I've loved every single one of them. I would say that this one is not as sciencey, but I will say that it's way spicier than all of her other books. So just keep in mind when you pick this up. For my audiobook, I'm currently listening to A Novel Love Story, and honestly, it's such a cute romance. The story follows Aileen, who's a literature professor. She's loved reading books her entire life, especially romance books, and there's a specific series that she's being in love with. For one reason or another, things happen. She ends up going down a not so happy path in her life, and she ends up going on this road trip. Her car breaks down in a mysterious town, and turns out that is a town from the book series that she's been reading. So she gets to go to all the places that are mentioned in the series, and of course she's fangirling and she's meeting all of the characters. And well, it's a romance book, so we know she's gonna fall in love with somebody. It's honestly such an interesting plot. The characters are very interesting and well done. I love the journey that she's on, and to be fair, this is like a love letter to all book lovers. I'm also like halfway through this book, so that's why I can give you a little bit of details about it. It's probably gonna be a solid like 4.5 star. For the ebook that I'm reading right now, we got The New York Charm, and let me just say that this is my first arc. I know, I'm very excited about it. I actually found Riley Winters, who's the author, on TikTok, and she was talking about how she was going to be releasing a new book, and I signed up to get an arc, and I actually got it. So I'm like 10% done with this book. It comes out on March 18. I'm gonna try to finish it before it comes out so I can actually share my opinions about it, probably on TikTok. But the first line in the synopsis says, "The past wasn't supposed to follow her to New York. Neither was he." So we already know a few things here. It's gonna be a second chance romance set in New York City, and just from what I've read so far, it's following Dylan, who's ready for a fresh start, until she ends up sitting right beside her ex on the flight to New York. And just to make matters worse, they actually end up like working together. So in between late night calls, meetings, tension that they were feeling before kind of like comes back, and I'm gonna assume they realize they're actually like meant for each other. Like I mentioned, I'm currently like 10%. I'm not too deep, but so far, so good. Now for Book of the Month picks, we got Our Infinite Fates. I usually don't read a lot of fantasy, but the premise of the book just sounded so interesting. I mean, let me just tell you the few words that are right here. They've loved each other in 1,000 lifetimes. They've killed each other in every one. I mean, doesn't that sound like really interesting? Because like that just like caught my attention. It follows Evelyn, who has been killed in every single one of her previous lives by the same person, but in this lifetime she's determined to break the curse, especially since her sister's life depends on it. I believe it's gonna be kind of like a mix of fantasy, romance, and perhaps some mystery. Very excited about this book. And the last book on my March TBR is Count My Lies. So this is a thriller, so I'm very excited about it, and it's also a new release. It sounds very interesting. So it follows this woman who starts telling like small white lies just to like keep it interesting, and I feel like that's something that I would have done when I was a kid. But when one little lie, pretending to be a nurse, lands her a job as a nanny for a wealthy New York City family, she actually realizes that she's not the only one keeping secrets. So the family that she's nannying for might seem picture perfect, but beneath the surface lies something much darker. As the lies unravel and things come out, like herself trapped on a web of lies that she cannot escape anymore. From what I've read, this seems to be a very twisted thriller, and then also has an unreliable narrator, which are two things that I truly absolutely love. So I feel like I'm really gonna enjoy this book. I cannot wait to start it. And that's my February wrap up and also my March TBR. Let me know in the comments if you read any of these books and what you think about them, or if you're planning on reading any of these books. Also, if you have any recommendations, leave them in the comments so I can add it to my never-ending TBR. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video.